Casino workers, what is the saddest thing you've seen? Write in the comments what you think about it. Casino workers, what is the saddest thing you've seen? Enjoy the show. Story 1. Not a casino per se, but many would argue the biggest casino of all. I worked at a Scottrade, now TD Ameritrade branch back in college. One Asian guy would come in almost daily to deposit money so he can continue day trading. Since I had access to all accounts, I looked into what he was doing. Options, margin, short selling, you name it. He played every which way he was approved for and lost money left and right. We had a 25K day trading limit, so every time he ended the day below 25K, he'd come in with another deposit. I never knew where his checks were coming from, but they were personal, so I figure it was a relative. It was pretty sad watching this guy give away money daily. Story 2. I work at a casino in their snack bar area. There's a lot of mingling on the floor, and you really see a lot of stuff from the sidelines. Saddest of them all is just how often you see the same people, every day. They order the same thing, same time, same addiction routine. I've seen 10s of 1,000s of comp points where you get 1 cent for every dollar that goes in and out of your machine in your account. Highest I've personally seen is 25K. Some other co-workers have told me 35K plus. Always here and never leaving, the casino is their life. Story 3. I'm not a casino worker, but a relative of mine is addicted to gambling. He has been gambling since he was 18, 20 years old. I have seen him become extremely wealthy for a few hours or even a few days, only to fall back into poverty. Currently, he is divorced, has no money, and owes a lot to loan sharks. Once we went to the casino together, he won a lot of times, but he couldn't stop playing, and therefore we left the casino without cash. Story 4. I work grave shift at our local casino, and I've seen it all. Kids sleeping on the food court chairs while parents gamble. Lost kids who wandered out of their hotel rooms looking for parents at 4 a.m. But the saddest of all to me are the employees here who work their shift and clock out to immediately head to the other casino in town, where they gamble till their next shift starts. Gambling addiction also hits casino workers hard. Story 5. I had a guy tell me he was going to kill me one time. I said, cool, stand right there, and the cops will come to get you in a few minutes. Cops came and arrested him. Next day, he's out of jail and tries to come back in. I said, you're trespassing and I'm calling the cops. He said, I'm sorry, man, I was drunk. I didn't mean it. What's the problem? Cops showed up and arrested him again. LOL. Story 6. Asterisk lady loses the rest of her dollar. How am I going to pay my rent? In general, people who start gambling and slowly decline into an extreme gambling addiction. Pregnant woman drinking wine all night, apparently caught her man cheating, so she just gambled silently for hours. 1-800, gambler told me I didn't have a problem because I haven't sold my stuff yet. Some old man pissing himself in his chair while playing. Woman pissed herself playing baccarat because she didn't want to miss the bonus. No, she didn't get it and kept playing. She swapped chairs. A woman face planted pretty hard. She got up and kept gambling while holding her face. People having strokes from playing so long. Employee side. Some dealer spread her shit all over the bathroom Dumb and Dumber style. Non-gambling, but at the casino. Some dude in crutches was shouting at this chick to hurry her ass up and go with him. The casino went silent and she started crying at the bar while being yelled at. They left together. There's definitely more. Story 7. My story also doesn't include me working in a casino, nor does it include being in a casino, but I did witness the aftermath of a devastating situation. We run a restaurant in town, and we used to close at 11 p.m. nearing midnight, so it wasn't unusual to see people leaving after 10, but was unusual to see people staying at or a bit after 11. This night I was at the restaurant hanging out bored and doing whatever work they would give me to pass time. I was up in front by the cash register and noticed a family still at their table when everyone else had left, and the clock read something like 11:25 p.m. I asked my mom what was going on and why the mother and younger lady were standing over the seated gentleman. She told me they were telling him off and getting ready to disown the father for finally gambling everything away, and that night was the final straw when he either took a loan out against his house or sold it without them knowing to do his final run at the casino. He lost it all, and the daughter looked about senior high school, early college age. They stayed an hour after closing and apologized for keeping us there when they finally left sometime after midnight. My mom told them it wasn't a problem and wished them good luck. I think my mom felt sympathy for them because at that point she was separated from my dad, who was also extremely addicted to gambling. The craziest story I heard about my dad was him taking $70K to the horse tracks and watching it poof in a matter of minutes. Story 8. In Chinese casinos in Cambodia, workers in Vietnam and surrounding countries will be deceived and sold into those casinos. They were tortured, forced to do online gambling scams, and if they did not work or ran away, they would be brutally beaten, electrocuted, and many other terrible things. If these people wanted freedom, they were forced to work or family members have to bring money to redeem it. Every time there are fireworks at these casinos, it means a new prey has fallen into the trap, and they have just made a large sum of money. Story 9. Obligatory. I don't work in a casino, but I gamble occasionally. More money than I'm willing to admit, but less than you'd think. I lose my money, and sometimes I win big. It comes and goes. But I never take more than I can afford to lose. What fucks me up is seeing people bet more money than I brought on a single bet. Like putting four-figure sums on red or six or whatever. It's unfathomable to me how people have that much money to bet with. I don't go often, but when I do, I see the same people there over and over again. It's nuts. I met a poker player who casually talked about losing $80K last month. He was playing $300 hands of poker with $50 bonus slots. The game we were playing, you have to ante and bet the same amount. So he was betting $700 per hand. It was like 3 times what I brought total. Story 10. Used to work in the cage at a small casino. Worst I saw was the first time a chick came in and was betting on a slot machine. She didn't realize how much she was betting and came to the cage and told me she didn't know how much she was betting, probably like $25/spin, and asked if she could get her money back. LOL. No. But the worst was a guy who came up to the cage and asked to be excluded, kicked out and not allowed to return. He said he had a gambling problem and spent his whole paycheck or something, and didn't want to be allowed back in. He handed me his player's card and asked to be excluded. I called security, and they took care of it. That was the worst I saw. Story 11. I was at the casino one night, and a guy was on a decent tear. I saw him hit a bunch of jackpots in the $1,200, $3,000 range. I would say at one point he was up about $7,000. He was tipping the floor people who handed him the money like $100 here, $200 there for each jackpot he won. I went there with $1,000 to play with, and at $2 a spin, I was there for like 5 or 6 hours. I watched this guy just absolutely tank. He went from machine to machine, putting in hundreds and hundreds into each machine. He was not some high roller, just a normal dude. Just as I was finishing up with about $750 to take home with me, one of the floor workers went up to him, and this was the conversation. So I see you're having a run of bad luck right now. I would really hate it if you went home with less money in your pocket than what you gave out to us. He said something like, "Oh, I'll get it back, don't worry." Within 10 minutes, he was at the ATM taking out another $1,000. Then again at the ATM taking out another $1,000. Then again about 10 minutes later taking out another $1,000. Dude left about the same time I did, having given out around $1,000, $1,500 to floor workers as tips, losing his initial money he came with, and at least another $3,000 on top of that. I walked to my car a few minutes after him, and he was smashing the steering wheel of his truck and screaming. Story 12. It's not really sad by the time you see it. The sad thing is the first time you spend time in a casino, which for a lot of people is the first day. The first thing that strikes you is the smell. It's like a sandwich. The ingredients hit you one after another. First, there's cigarette smoke. Even in casinos that have banned smoking, the smell still hangs on. Then there's the smell of stale liquor, cheap liquor. The place smells like a wino. Right under that is the smell of unwashed humanity. Sweat, piss, fart, shart, halitosis, and that unmistakable old person smell. Then you realize these smells are wafting equally from the casino and the clientele. Then there's the sound, or lack of sound. Despite all these people gathered here for entertainment, there is no cheering, no laughter. Just the maddening noise of game machines all shouting over each other. The players stare zombie-like into the screens. The security look out silently over the players. People mill about among the machines in silence. It feels like a cubicle farm. Then there's the sights. Casinos are dressed up like resorts and theme parks mixed together, but have none of the excitement or people either have. You don't see happy families or college kids on skip years or Swedish travelers. You see ragged, worn-out people in their pajamas, shuffling in to disappear into the machines, contrasting the bright colors and blinking lights and patterned carpet and very nice uniforms. All this will change your impression of a casino really quick. On your first or second day, before you even see something really terrible. This place is just selling vice, catering to the beaten-down people who indulge in it. It's all just part of the delivery mechanism where they take money and give the products, alcohol, and gambling. These people are here to feed, not to play. If they win, all they win is a chance to get a little more. You come, you buy your loss, you buy your liquor, you go home, you come back tomorrow. It's so mind-crushingly, mechanically miserable that when you see the misery manifest, it only confirms what you had already worked out. Story 13. When I was in high school, my mom woke me up in the middle of the night and asked me if I wanted to go with her to the Tri-Brand Casino. She said we would only be there for a little bit. We got there around maybe 11 or midnight. I slept in the car for a few hours. Around 3 or so 4 a.m., I walk into the casino and have to walk around the slots to see my mom there just gambling away. I stay next to her for another few hours until we finally left. I think she may have lost a few dollars. Fast forward 10 years or so, and she calls me asking me to wire her money. He and my stepfather were stuck either in Vegas or another gambling town out west, don't remember the name, and didn't even have enough money for gas or food to get home. I had to wire her the money. They stopped at a family member's house to shower by just driving up unannounced and using their front yard water hose. The family member's landlord saw this and thought they were random homeless people and offered them fruit off a tree in the front yard to eat. I wired her the money to get home and told them I would never help them again. Story 14. Not a casino worker, but I got a call from a buddy at 3 a.m. from Atlantic City Casino. He had gambled his rent payment and utilities budget for the month away and had no money to get home. He wanted to know if I could wire him more dollar or at least come pick him up. I lived in North Jersey at the time, and Atlantic City was a 2.5-hour trip each way. I said to him that I had to be up for work in 3 hours, and why TF are you calling me like I have money to piss away on gambling? He argued with me. I had to hang up on him, and I was so angry that I couldn't go back to sleep, so I just went into work early. He had the balls to be angry at me and try to guilt-trip me that he wasn't going to make rent. Story 15, ex-casino worker here. I watched a sweet woman get manipulated from being quite wealthy to no money and doing hard drugs because she was lonely and had no family. She even sold her company just so she could gamble with her friends that she would give money to in order to help her gamble, and they would totally share their winnings with her. Her dream was to open up an ice cream store for kids with the money from her restaurant. Eventually, I stopped seeing her come in. Another one is about an older, wealthy guy who would complain all the time when he didn't get a bonus. Casino gave him an Xbox and didn't know how to set it up, so I helped him out outside of work. Turns out he was just a really lonely guy. He actually did need help with the Xbox, though, that wanted company. Through my conversations with him at the casino, I find out he's had 3 heart surgeries. One day, he stops coming to the casino. Hopefully, he didn't have another heart attack. Another few notable individuals I've met are a diamond store CEO who was actually a lovely individual to be around, surprisingly, a top manager in their auto industry, a famous person I won't go into detail about, and one of the C-suites, I think maybe even the CEO IDK, for a smaller tax prep company. Casinos are mostly filled with people with lots of money, people that love playing slots as if they were Candy Crush, lonely old people, homeless people, and the occasional curious person or group of people that aren't over 40 just having a fun time on the weekend. Needless to say, I left that depressing place. I do miss the pay, though. I was a slot attendant, and we made 2x minimum wage working 26 HRs a week. Story 16, I have a couple. I had a player come in and play two limit hold'em every day for 4 months. Then one day he gets up, picks up his chips, and asks me where the cage was. He had lost every buy-in for 4 straight months, and this was the first time he had something to actually cash out. The table 2 over from where I was dealing one night had a man who suffered a fatal heart attack. As the paramedics are trying to resuscitate him, the other players at the table were yelling at my coworker to hurry up and deal the next hand, because it's not like he's coming back to play. I wasn't personally there for this one, but one of my friends was dealing a game where someone lost a lot. He unzipped his pants and pissed all over her under the poker table. After they booted the guy, the floor told her she could go home if she wanted, but they'd appreciate if she'd just go up to one of the hotel rooms and take a shower and come back because they were short-handed. Story 17, ex-casino cocktail waitress here. I worked at a casino on a reservation. I saw a pregnant woman show up at our back shipping door in the pitch-black night. She'd been stabbed in the belly, she was bleeding all over, My manager cleared the area and I don't know what came of her. I saw families and a community torn apart not just by the casino, but by systemic oppression and colonial violence, by Canada and the generational trauma endured. I saw regulars spend their entire paychecks, and then would hear stories of folks needing to use materials from their homes to heat their houses because they had no money left. I saw brothers who loved each other drunk and throwing rocks glasses at each other, trying to off the other because they were too pissed drunk. After I left, I was told that our pit boss took his own life, walked onto the train tracks and called it quits. He had a family, and he was the kindest man, always considering the staff and customers. Edited for clarity and added more stories. Story 18, I'm not a casino worker but have gambling-addicted parents. I live on the Gulf Coast. My parents live in the Midwest. My daughters are 2 and 4, and they only recently met my parents for the first time very briefly in a casino lobby. Only because my parents have gambled so much at MGM, they offered to fly them down to Biloxi, MS and give them a hotel and a bunch of free plays. After we put the kids to bed, my wife told me to go down to the casino and have fun. I think I withdrew $150 to play a few slot machines and basically spend some time with my mom and dad. It was around 10:30 p.m., and my machine hit for a little over $1,500. I hit the collect button and said to my mom, "I'm done. I expected to lose all the money I brought here, and I'm going to use this money to compensate for the trip and buy some new clothes for my daughter's upcoming school year." My mother became upset and said, "It's only 10:30? Live a little and you're on a hot streak. I bet if you continue playing, you could turn that $1,500 into $3,000. I said, "No, my kids will be up at 6:30 a.m., and I can't afford to lose sleep. Stay out late, and the probability of me being able to win 10x the money I came here with itself is way more than I could have asked for. And the probability of me winning more than what I have already won is way less odds. I'm taking my chips and cashing out." My mother then had some choice words with me and became unhinged, saying things like, "There you go with that math shit. My major is in mathematics computer engineering. Oh, look at you, so educated, and you know how all these machines work." Shit was hurtful. This is why I hate casinos. They destroy people. The only plus side is when my parents do pass away, they won't have anything left because the majority of their wealth has been transferred to the casino. Thankfully, both my sister and I are very successful, and in reality, sorting out their estate will be more of a burden than a windfall. Story 19. I started working in my tribe's hotel in 2015. It was a fairly new add-on to the 23-year-old casino. I started as a housekeeper, but around a year later, I was the main supervisor. Anyways, this older white trucker dude became a regular and was always staying for like 3-4 days at a time as he was driving coast to coast. You could tell he didn't have family or he just didn't communicate with them anymore. I don't know much about truckers or etiquette, but I do not try to judge. But just going by the way he left the room and the smell, he didn't care much about hygiene. Anyways, he hit on a slot machine one night for over $10,000. He stayed for 2 nights and probably played back almost half of it back into the casino in bets and drinks. He came back the next week and hit one of those progressive machines with a jackpot of $68,000. They did the whole thing with a big-ass check, and he collected a small amount and was supposed to come back the following week and collect the rest. His semi ended up in a major head-on collision and he did not make it. One of our co-workers recognized his name. Story 20. Not a casino worker, not even into gambling, but the one and only time I spent any appreciable amount of time in a casino was at a small tribal casino in Northern California. The place reeked of stale cigarette smoke, and there was just this ambiance that can only be described as broken dreams permeating the place. I saw some lady chain smoking cigarettes and playing 2 slot machines at once, staring dead-eyed ahead of her as she just went through the motions. Some fellow who looked especially down on his luck wandered up to my group and asked if we had any money to spare. What took the cake for me was when one of my friends, who just happened to be a super outgoing positive guy, saw some lady was on a winning streak at a slot machine, and he came up and joined her at the machine, excitedly cheering her on until the casino staff approached and told him to keep it down, this isn't Vegas. I didn't gamble that night. I mostly just watched everyone I was with lose all their money. I just don't really get the appeal of gambling. Story 21. My family business was casinos, so I could tell stories for days, but the absolute saddest was witnessed by my grandma, and I always use it as a cautionary tale. Grandma and Grandpa used to get free comp trips to the Bahamas, And this happened at a Caribbean stud table there. A lady there, not grandma, grandpa, or great aunt, just another old lady at the table, got dealt a natural royal flush. She was so excited she ran over to the next table to show her husband, immediately disqualifying her hand because it left the table. Would have paid out like $5,000, $10,000 in late 1980s. So remember folks, if you win, don't touch anything until you're paid. Story 22, 2003, 04. I was working at the bar of a casino hotel complex in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Lots of customers used comp tickets to get free non-alcoholic daiquiris or chicken wings. One customer using these comp tickets told me she couldn't afford to tip me because the casino took my money. I didn't care one way or the other, as I knew I was unlikely to get much of a tip in the first place. However, she ended up leaving a tip in the form of whatever loose change she had in her purse but left it in a used ashtray. That set me off and I ended up smashing the ashtray at the bottom of a trash can. Story 23. I wasn't a casino worker, but I was a delivery driver for a pizza place back in the day, and me and another driver were working on a Thursday night. It started off dead, and since I was first on off, I was going to head home, but instead other driver left saying he had a family emergency with his mom and will be back in a couple hours. So I was the only driver and it ended up getting quite busy, and I was all alone, which was hell. But he came back and confessed to me he actually lost $200 at the casino and wanted to win it back since it wasn't busy but ended up losing more. Thing is, I made more than $200 that night at tips. Story 24, former casino worker of 20 years. I've seen a lot of things, but this one stands out to me. I was the games manager on shift, and there was a lady in her 40s playing blackjack. She had been there a few hours and had made quite a few trips to the ATM, and her buy-ins were getting into the thousands of dollars. I was doing paperwork in the pit when a dealer called me over while the lady was on another ATM trip and said she was crying just before. I kept an eye on her, and after she lost a few more hands, I could see the tears start, and she was silently crying while playing. I went up and, as discreetly as possible, asked her if she was okay and offered help through our Partnered Addictions help program. She looked me right in the face and got mad at me for asking and told me she's fine and to leave her alone. She was making staff very uncomfortable at that time, and it was obvious she was crying more and more as she continued to play and lose. I made the decision to ask her to leave for the night and comped her cab ride home. I tried again to offer her information to organizations to help with her gambling again, but still not interested. Addictions are heartbreaking to see, and I really hope she was able to get help. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it. Be sure to write comments and share your stories.